There are some lives you can measure in wins and losses, and then there's Mike Tyson, a life you can only measure in survival. He rose from the kind of childhood that breaks most people, became the most feared fighter on the planet, lost everything, rebuilt himself from ashes, and now, at 59, lives with a wisdom he never thought he'd see. This is not just the story of a champion, it's the story of a man who fought the world, fought himself, and somehow lived long enough to understand what all that pain was trying to teach him. Some legends are not born, they are forced into existence by pain. Mike Tyson's early life was shaped long before the world saw him in a boxing ring. His story began in Brownsville, one of the toughest neighborhoods in New York, where almost every street corner felt unsafe, and sirens were part of daily life. People struggled to make ends meet, and violence was something kids learned to recognize before they learned how to spell. For Mike, hunger was normal, noise was constant, and danger was always close. His mother, Lorna Tyson, worked hard, but life kept knocking her down. She moved her children from one small apartment to another, hoping each place would be better, but the problems always followed them. Food was often limited, bills piled up, and survival became the only goal. Mike grew up without the steady presence of a father. His biological father, Purcell Tyson, disappeared so early that Mike later said he didn't remember him at all. For a short moment, another man named Jimmy Kirkpatrick stepped in and acted like a father figure. But he also walked away, leaving Mike once again with the painful feeling that men came into his life only to vanish. These early losses shaped how he saw himself. A child who keeps getting left behind starts to believe something must be wrong with him, even if that thought remains unspoken. Mike carried this wound, and it silently followed him into every part of his growing years. School and the streets were harsh places for him. Mike had a soft voice and a lisp, and because of that, kids often bullied him. They pushed him, mocked him, and acted like he didn't matter. He wore big glasses that made him stand out even more, and instead of helping him blend in, they made him an easy target. Over time, shame and loneliness settled inside him. He felt invisible, and when he did get attention, it was usually for the wrong reasons. The world never gave him space to feel safe or understood. With no father, a tired mother, and no one to defend him, Mike learned at an early age that he had to survive on his own. But there was one place where he found peace, the rooftop. Up there, away from the noise and the fear, Mike kept pigeons. They were small, gentle creatures, and caring for them became the one calm part of his life. When he fed them or built them little shelters from old wood and scraps, he felt something he didn't feel anywhere else: love. He often said that pigeons were the first things he ever loved. They didn't judge him, didn't mock him, and didn't leave him. In the middle of a world that treated him roughly, these birds gave him a soft escape. Everything changed one afternoon when a neighborhood boy grabbed Mike's favorite pigeon and killed it right in front of him. For other kids, it might have seemed like nothing, but for Mike, it was everything. That pigeon represented the only softness he had. Watching it die wasn't just sad, it broke something inside him. All the humiliation, anger, and pain he had stored inside for years suddenly rose to the surface. That moment sparked his first real explosion of rage. It wasn't just about the pigeon. It was about every bully, every insult, every abandonment. From that point on, Mike made a promise to himself that he would never allow anyone to hurt him again. This was the beginning of a psychological shift that would shape the fighter he later became. As Mike grew older, the streets became his second home. He started hanging around the Jolly Stompers, a local gang. They weren't a real family, but they gave him a sense of belonging, something he had been searching for his whole life. He ran errands for them, did small jobs, and absorbed the tough attitude of the neighborhood. It didn't take long before he got involved in petty thefts and street trouble. By the time he was 13, he had been arrested more than 40 times. Each arrest blurred into the next, and the police knew his name as well as he knew the streets. Mike wasn't a bad kid, he was a lonely kid who didn't know another way to survive. Eventually, one bad decision sent him to the Tryon School for Boys, a juvenile detention center. The place felt cold and isolating. Long hallways, strict routines, and a silence that felt heavier at night made him feel even more alone. Mike hoped his mother would visit, but she never came. For 9 long months, he sat in the visitor's room, waiting for a door that never opened. That experience deepened the emptiness inside him, making him feel like he truly had no one in the world. But life has a strange way of placing important people in the right place at the right time. At Tryon, Mike met Bobby Stewart, a counselor and former boxer. One day, Stewart saw Mike hitting a bag with unusual force and raw power. Instead of seeing a troubled boy, Stewart saw potential. He noticed something in Mike that no one else had taken the time to see. Bobby decided to train him, guide him, and give him discipline. He pushed Mike physically, but more importantly, he gave him a chance to believe in something. For the first time, an adult didn't give up on him. Bobby became the bridge between Mike and the world that would change his life forever. He introduced Mike to a legendary trainer, setting off a chain of events that would shape the rest of his future. And when Mike finally walked into the Catskill gym, the man waiting for him didn't see a criminal, he saw a champion. Before the world feared him, one man believed in him. When Mike Tyson first walked into the Catskill boxing gym, he didn't know that his entire life was about to change. He expected another adult who would judge him or ignore him the way so many others had done. Instead, he found Cus D'Amato, an older man with sharp eyes who studied Mike quietly. Cus didn't rush to speak. He simply watched the way Mike stood, the weight he carried in his shoulders, and the pain he tried so hard to hide. After a few moments, Cus said something that felt impossible. "You can be the youngest heavyweight champion in the world." Mike was stunned. Nobody had ever told him he could be great. Nobody had ever believed in him without conditions. Those words entered his heart faster than any punch could land. From that first day, Cus became much more than a boxing trainer. He treated Mike not as a troubled kid, but as someone with purpose. Cus brought him into his home, fed him, talked to him, and made him feel safe for the first time in his life. Mike slept in a real room, under a roof where someone actually cared whether he ate or whether he felt scared at night. Cus even left the hallway light on, so Mike wouldn't feel alone. That simple act meant more to Mike than any championship ever would. It showed him what a real home felt like. Cus became his legal guardian, giving him structure, guidance, and emotional protection he had never received from anyone else. Training under Cus was not easy. It was strict, painful, and demanding. Mike woke up at 4 a.m. in the freezing Catskill mornings and ran miles before the sun came up. His breath burned in the cold air, and the mountains felt endless. After running, the real training began. Mike did between 2,000 and 3,000 sit-ups a day. He jumped rope, worked the heavy bag, and practiced the peekaboo style that Cus had perfected over the years. This fighting style focused on constant head movement, slipping punches by inches, and delivering powerful hits from unexpected angles. Cus made Mike spar with grown men who were bigger, stronger, and more experienced. Some days, the punches were so hard that Mike felt like he couldn't breathe. But he kept going, driven by the belief Cus had placed in him. What made Cus different was that he wasn't only building Mike's body, he was shaping his mind. Every day, he taught Mike lessons about fear, control, and self-respect. Cus often said, "The hero and the coward feel the same thing, fear, but the hero reacts to it differently." Mike listened closely, learning that fear wasn't something to hide from. It was something to understand and use as power. Cus taught him how to stay calm, how to fight with intelligence, and how to trust himself even when everything felt uncertain. Cus also trained Mike through film. Every night, Mike watched old videos of great fighters like Jack Dempsey. He studied their footwork, the way they moved, their timing, their confidence, and their determination. Kus made him repeat certain movements until they became natural, like breathing. The training wasn't just physical, it was mental conditioning. Kus wanted Mike to see himself not as a kid from the streets, but as a future champion. Slowly, Mike started to believe it. In the beginning, Mike trained out of anger. He wanted to hit back at the world that had ignored him. He wanted to feel powerful after feeling powerless for so long. But over time, something inside him shifted. His rage slowly turned into discipline. His pain began to turn into purpose. He wanted to be great, not out of revenge, but out of honor for the man who believed in him. Kus became the father Mike had always needed, someone who pushed him, but also protected him. But life wasn't finished testing Mike. In 1982, his mother, Lorna Tyson, passed away. Even though their relationship had been complicated, she was still his mother. Her death shook something inside him. Mike cried not only because she was gone, but because she would never see the man he was becoming. He felt a strange combination of sadness and guilt. He wished she could have witnessed his transformation. And once again, Kus stepped in to fill the emotional gap. He didn't replace Mike's mother, but he became the steady presence Mike needed to keep moving forward. As the years passed, Mike's skills grew at an unbelievable rate. His punches were faster, sharper, and more powerful than anyone expected from a teenager. His body transformed from a troubled boy into a machine built for fighting. He trained harder than everyone else. He followed every instruction Kus gave him. He focused, listened, and improved every day. His confidence grew, but not in a loud way. It grew quietly, the way strength grows in someone who has survived too much to ever take success for granted. Under Kus's guidance, Iron Mike began to form. He became a fighter who moved with precision, struck with force, and carried the emotional weight of his past into every punch. Kus wasn't just training an athlete. He was shaping a young man who had once felt invisible into someone the world could no longer ignore. Mike later said, "Without Kus, there would be no Mike Tyson. He made me who I am." These weren't just words. They were the truth of a bond that went far beyond boxing. Mike was on his way. His skills were rising, his confidence was building, and the world was starting to notice the young fighter from Brownsville who moved like lightning and hit like a heavyweight champion. But just as everything seemed to be coming together, life was preparing another test, one that would shake him more deeply than anything before. But just as destiny began rising around him, fate prepared to take the one person he could not live without. Sometimes greatness doesn't climb, it detonates. When Mike Tyson stepped into the ring as a professional fighter for the first time on the 6th of March 1985, the world had no idea that a storm had just been released. His debut opponent, Hector Mercedes, lasted less than 2 rounds. Mike knocked him out with a level of power rarely seen in an 18-year-old. That single fight wasn't just a win, it was a warning of what was coming. Mike didn't slow down. In his first year alone, he fought 15 times. Most fighters fight 2 or 3 times a year, but Mike fought more than a fight a month. Even more shocking, he won every single one by knockout. Each opponent fell faster, each crowd grew louder, and each headline carried the same message: this young man was different. As his record grew, so did the fear in the heavyweight division. Tyson's power wasn't only physical, it was emotional. His punches came from years of pain, years of abandonment, and years of discipline drilled into him by Kus D'Amato. His early fights showed a fighter who didn't just aim to win, he aimed to destroy. One of the biggest early moments came when he faced Marvis Frazier, the son of the legendary Joe Frazier. Many expected a competitive fight, but Mike ended it in just 30 seconds. One left uppercut sent Frazier crashing to the canvas. The fight was over before some families even sat down with their popcorn. That moment made national headlines and proved Tyson wasn't just a rising star, he was a force. But even as Tyson was rising, life hit him with a blow he could never fully recover from. In November 1985, Cus D'Amato died. The man who had saved Mike, trained him, guided him, and believed in him, was gone. Mike was still fighting, still training, and still improving, but emotionally he felt lost. He later said it felt like someone had taken the steering wheel off a fast-moving car. Without Cus, the world began feeling colder again. The pain of losing the man he considered his true father stayed deep inside him, even as he kept winning in the ring. During this difficult time, Jimmy Jacobs stepped in to help keep Mike stable. Jimmy was kind, patient, and protective. He understood Mike's emotional needs and helped fill the role of father figure, even if he could never replace Cus. Together with trainer Kevin Rooney, Jimmy made sure Mike stayed focused and disciplined. This support allowed Tyson to keep moving forward, even while carrying grief silently on his shoulders. Then came the years that changed boxing forever. In 1986, Tyson faced Trevor Berbick for the WBC heavyweight title. Berbick was tough and experienced, but he couldn't handle Tyson's speed and power. In a fight that lasted less than 2 rounds, Tyson knocked Berbick down multiple times until he could no longer stand steady. At just 20 years old, Mike Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history. It was a record nobody had ever touched, and nobody has broken since. But Tyson didn't stop there. In 1987, he fought James Bonecrusher Smith and won the WBA title. Not long after, he defeated Tony Tucker to win the IBF belt. With all 3 major titles in his hands, Tyson became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. No fighter alive could challenge his speed, power, or presence. He moved like a middleweight and hit like a truck. Fans didn't just watch his fights, they studied them, replayed them, and talked about them for weeks. Part of Tyson's dominance came from something beyond skill. It was the aura he created. He walked to the ring wearing simple black trunks, black shoes, and no robe. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy. No socks, no smiles, no nonsense. This wasn't a show. This was intimidation. Many opponents later admitted they were already scared before the first punch was thrown. Tyson stared at them without blinking, as if he was looking right through them. And when the bell rang, he came forward like a missile. This aura reached its highest point on the 27th of June, 1988, the night he fought Michael Spinks. The build-up was enormous. Spinks was undefeated. Many believed he could be the one to beat Tyson. The arena was packed with celebrities, athletes, and millions watching on TV. The fight earned Tyson the biggest payday of his career at the time. But when the bell rang, it took Tyson only 91 seconds to end Spinks's undefeated record and send shockwaves through the entire world. It remains one of the most dominant performances in boxing history. After that night, Tyson wasn't just a champion, he was a global icon. People who didn't watch boxing knew his name. Children wore his shirts. Adults admired his power. The world felt like it was his. But success doesn't always attract the right people. As Tyson's fame grew, Don King began moving closer into his life. King had a strong reputation in boxing, but also a long history of controlling fighters, manipulating finances, and placing himself at the center of everything. Slowly, he gained influence over Tyson, pushing out the people who had protected him. Kevin Rooney, the trainer who kept Tyson grounded, was removed. Jimmy Jacobs, the last man holding Tyson emotionally steady, became ill and eventually passed away. With each person lost, Tyson became more isolated and easier for others to influence. The world continued cheering, the knockouts continued coming, and the crowds kept growing. But behind the bright lights, trouble was slowly forming. Poor choices, new temptations, and emotional wounds he never took time to heal all began building under the surface. What the world didn't know was that every victory was hiding a growing storm inside him. A man can survive punches to the body, but not the blows life throws at the heart. After reaching the top of the boxing world, Mike Tyson's life began to fall apart piece by piece. The first major crack came in 1988 when Jimmy Jacobs, the gentle and intelligent manager who had become another father figure to Mike, passed away from leukemia. Jimmy had been the last stable voice in Mike's life after Cuss died. He protected Mike from bad influences, kept him focused, and understood his emotional struggles better than anyone. When Jimmy died, Mike felt the ground beneath him shake again. He later said it felt like the second time someone turned off the lights in his life. With Jacobs gone, Mike lost not only a manager, but the last person who gave him emotional balance. Soon after, another painful shift happened. Kevin Rooney, the trainer who had been with him during the best years of his career, was pushed out of his team. Rooney wasn't just a trainer. He was the living link to Cuss D'Amato. He knew the style Cuss created, the discipline Cuss demanded, and the psychological methods Cuss used to keep Mike sharp. When Rooney left, that connection died too. It was as if the last piece of Cuss's teachings had been taken away. Without Rooney, Mike's training changed. His discipline weakened. His foundation began to break. Into that empty space stepped Don King. King was powerful, loud, and persuasive. He promised Mike everything: money, fame, control, loyalty. But behind the words were intentions that didn't always protect the fighter. Under King's influence, Mike's life became surrounded by people who encouraged excess instead of discipline. His schedule became unpredictable. Parties replaced rest. New friends replaced loyal ones. His decision-making became unstable. The structure that had once saved his life slowly disappeared, and chaos started entering through the cracks. While all this was happening, Tyson's marriage to Robin Givens was falling apart in front of the entire world. Their relationship, already strained by fame and pressure, reached its breaking point during a famous TV interview. Robin spoke about the difficulties in their marriage, while Mike sat beside her, silent and shocked. The world watched as their private pain became public. The pressure of celebrity life, emotional misunderstandings, and Tyson's growing instability caused the marriage to collapse. For Mike, it felt like losing another piece of home he had tried to build. With no emotional guidance, Tyson's behavior started to spiral. He was involved in street fights, especially the well-known incident with Mitch Green, where the fight happened outside a clothing store. He faced legal trouble. Police visits became common. His training became inconsistent. He missed sessions, partied late, and surrounded himself with people who encouraged destructive habits. Even though he was still winning fights, the signs of decline were clear to those who looked closely. Everything came crashing down in February 1990. Tyson entered a fight in Tokyo against James "Buster" Douglas. The world expected another easy win. Douglas was a 4-2-1 underdog. Almost nobody believed he could compete with Tyson. But Tyson entered the fight unfocused, undertrained, and emotionally empty. Douglas, on the other hand, was fighting with determination and heart after recently losing his own mother. In the 8th round, Tyson knocked Douglas down, but Douglas got up with new energy. In the 10th round, Douglas hit Tyson with a combination that sent him crashing to the canvas. Mike tried to find his mouthpiece, but was too disoriented. The referee counted him out. It became the biggest upset in boxing history. For many, it was more than a loss. It was a sign that the strong emotional and mental foundation Cuss built had finally fallen apart. More darkness followed. In 1992, Tyson was convicted in a high-profile case and sent to prison. He was only 25 years old. When the cell door shut behind him, he said it felt like his whole life closing at once. Prison forced Mike to face himself in a way he never had before. There was no fame, no cheers, no distractions. Just silence, anger, and long days. He read books, wrote letters, exercised, and tried to understand the person he had become. Prison did not erase his mistakes, but it showed him the emptiness he had been avoiding for years. Mike later said he felt completely lost inside those walls. When he was released in 1995, he returned to boxing. He won fights, reclaimed titles, and the crowds cheered again. But something felt different. The victories felt hollow. He wasn't the same fighter emotionally or mentally. The discipline, sharpness, and drive that once defined him were weaker. He fought with power, but without the same purpose he once had under cuss. Then came one of the most shocking moments in sports history. In 1997, during his rematch with Evander Holyfield, Tyson bit Holyfield's ear out of frustration. The world was stunned. The referee stopped the fight, and Tyson was disqualified. The incident became international news. Tyson was fined millions and suspended from boxing. It was a moment that showed how far he had fallen from the disciplined young fighter Cuss had molded. His emotions controlled him instead of the other way around. These years were filled with one painful event after another: loss of guidance, broken relationships, financial problems, legal trouble, and emotional confusion, all mixed together into a long, painful spiral. Tyson tried to keep going, but each year brought new challenges instead of peace. But the storm wasn't finished, not until it took the one thing no father should ever lose. Some punches come from life, not opponents, and they hit far harder. Mike Tyson's journey through love and relationships showed him a kind of pain that no boxing match could prepare him for. His first major relationship in the spotlight was with Robin Givens. They were both young, successful, and moving fast. Their connection started quickly, filled with excitement and hope, but also filled with emotional wounds they both carried from their pasts. Tyson came from a background of loneliness and survival, while Robin came from a world of structure, expectations, and pressure. At first, their differences felt interesting, but soon, those same differences became the source of tension. Their marriage lasted only about a year, but the stress around it felt much longer. Fame put a spotlight on every moment of their relationship. The public watched, judged, and created stories around their marriage. The pressure grew until one moment made everything explode. The famous TV interview where Robin spoke about the difficulties in their relationship while Tyson sat next to her, silent and hurt. That interview showed the world how emotionally distant they had become. Their marriage couldn't survive the pressure, misunderstandings, and constant attention. They divorced in 1989, and although the headlines made it look dramatic, the truth was simply that two young people with deep emotional scars couldn't find stability together. Tyson later said the whole situation left him confused and hurt for many years. After that breakup, Tyson crossed paths briefly with Naomi Campbell. Their relationship was short and not as serious as some people later claimed. It wasn't a dramatic love story. It was more like two people meeting at a time when their lives were going in very different directions. Naomi was disciplined, focused, and building her career with structure. Tyson, on the other hand, was still emotionally unstable and dealing with the pressure of fame and the confusion in his personal life. For a moment, there was comfort between them, Naomi offering calmness and Tyson offering honesty about his struggles. But both understood quickly that they were not in a position to build something real. They moved on without anger, simply recognizing that timing and emotional readiness matter more than attraction. In the early 1990s, Tyson found a more stable relationship with Monica Turner, a medical student who later became a pediatric doctor. Monica brought calmness into his life. She wasn't interested in the spotlight, and she didn't push him for attention. Her personality was gentle and steady, which was the opposite of the chaos Tyson often lived in. Tyson later said that she was one of the few people who saw him not as a fighter or a famous name, but as a human being who needed peace. They married in 1997, and during those early years, their home life gave Tyson something he had always wanted: a family. Their daughter Raina was born in 1996, and their son Amir arrived in 1997. Tyson often said that holding his children made him feel hope he had never felt before. He wanted to be the father he never had. For a while, he tried hard to be present and loving, But deep emotional issues don't disappear quickly. Tyson carried years of trauma and unstable habits. Slowly, those old struggles started to return. He found himself drifting away, missing important moments, and making choices that hurt the relationship. Infidelity became a turning point. Monica discovered things she couldn't ignore, and their marriage eventually collapsed. She filed for divorce in 2002, and although the media talked about money, the real loss was emotional. Tyson later admitted that he truly wanted the marriage to work, but didn't have the emotional tools to keep it healthy. After his divorce, Tyson's life entered another complicated chapter when he began a relationship with Xochitl. Their connection was a mix of chaos and tenderness. There were moments of calm love and moments of heavy stress. Saul understood parts of Tyson's emotional world, and their relationship, although unstable, produced something incredibly meaningful: the birth of their daughter, Exodus, in 2005. Tyson adored her. He said that when he held Exodus, he felt a gentler part of himself come alive, a part he had buried for most of his life. She gave him a new reason to be better, and he tried in his own way to be a loving father. But in 2009, tragedy struck in a way no family is ever prepared for. One morning, while Sol was in another room, Exodus became entangled in the cord of an exercise machine inside the house. It was a silent, accidental moment that changed everything in seconds. Her older brother, only 7 years old, found her and called for help. Saul rushed in and tried CPR, calling 911 while shaking with fear and panic. The paramedics arrived quickly and took Exodus to the hospital. Tyson was in Las Vegas when he received the phone call. He immediately flew to Phoenix, but every mile of that flight felt like agony. He later said he couldn't remember anything from the airport because his mind felt frozen. When he arrived at the hospital, he learned that Exodus had passed away. She was only 4 years old. Tyson said it was the most painful moment of his entire life. He didn't get angry. He didn't blame Sol. He simply collapsed under the weight of losing his child. No knockout he had ever suffered came close to this pain. Her death changed him. It broke something inside, but also forced him to look at his life differently. He realized how fragile everything truly was. He realized how much time he had lost in chaos, anger, and confusion. For the first time, Tyson understood that emotional healing was just as important as physical strength. He later said that Exodus's memory pushed him to stop destroying himself and start rebuilding his life. In the ashes of that unimaginable pain, a different kind of rebirth began, one that even Tyson didn't expect. Redemption doesn't roar, it whispers. After losing his daughter Exodus, Mike Tyson was living in a broken emotional state. He felt empty, guilty, and unsure of who he was anymore. But during this painful period, someone quietly stepped into his life and refused to let him fall apart. Her name was Lakeha Kiki Spicer. Kiki had her own difficult past and her own wounds, which made her understand Mike in ways others never could. Their connection didn't start with excitement or loud promises. It began with understanding. Both were hurting, both were tired of chaos, and both wanted peace. Their relationship grew slowly, built on honesty and patience rather than speed. While the world saw Mike as a tough fighter, Kiki saw the troubled man inside him. She didn't try to fix him in a day. She stayed close, listened to him, and supported him in simple ways. Mike later said that she made him feel safe at a time when he thought he would never feel safe again. In 2009, only 2 weeks after losing Exodus, they married in a small ceremony. It wasn't a celebration, it was a promise. A promise that even in the deepest darkness, he didn't have to walk alone. Their marriage marked the beginning of a new direction for Mike's life. It was the moment he chose to build, not destroy. Becoming a father again gave him another chance to grow. Mike and Kiki welcomed their daughter Milan in 2008, even before they married. Milan quickly became an important part of Mike's emotional healing. She was calm, focused, and surprisingly disciplined for a young child. As she grew older, she showed strong interest in tennis. Mike became her biggest supporter. He woke up early for her practices, traveled to her tournaments, and stood quietly on the sidelines cheering for her. This was a new version of Mike, one who showed love through presence, not intensity. In 2011, Mike and Kiki had their son Morocco. He added joy and laughter to their home. Mike enjoyed the simple moments with him, having breakfast, playing around the house, and teaching him small things about life. At the same time, Mike slowly rebuilt relationships with his older children, Reina and Amir from Monica Turner, and Miguel. He wanted to be part of their lives in a way he hadn't been able to before. The guilt of his past mistakes didn't disappear, but he used it as motivation to stay steady. He realized that being a father was not about being perfect, it was about being present. As Mike's family life grew stronger, he began working on his emotional and mental health. He turned to meditation, something he once thought he could never do. Meditation helped him calm the noise in his mind. It taught him how to slow down instead of reacting in anger or fear. He also started therapy, opening up about the trauma he carried from childhood, the pressure of fame, and the mistakes he regretted. For a long time, Mike had tried to hide his pain behind toughness. Now he understood that healing required honesty. He also became sober, leaving behind the substances that once numbed his emotions, but also kept him stuck in destructive cycles. Financial rebuilding was another major challenge. After earning hundreds of millions during his career, Tyson filed for bankruptcy in 2003 with more than $23 million in debt. Instead of chasing quick money to fix his problems, he chose a slow and steady path. He started learning about investments, property, and business. He took smaller opportunities that aligned with the life he wanted to build. For the first time, he made financial decisions with discipline instead of impulse. It was not easy, but it created a foundation that would later give him stability. One of the biggest turning points in his transformation came with his Broadway one-man show, Undisputed Truth, directed by Spike Lee. On stage, Mike talked openly about his childhood, fame, mistakes, prison time, addictions, and heartbreaks. He told stories he once felt ashamed of, exposing his real self without fear. The audience didn't hear the voice of a fighter, they heard the voice of a survivor. People respected his honesty. His vulnerability became his strength. The show was a huge success and helped the public see him in a new light. It marked the beginning of Mike's return to the public eye, not as a controversial figure, but as someone who had learned from life. Then came Hotboxin', his podcast. What started as a simple idea turned into a global platform. Millions of viewers tuned in to hear Mike talk with athletes, actors, musicians, spiritual teachers, and regular people with powerful stories. On the podcast, Tyson often reflected on life, trauma, ego, discipline, addiction, and healing. He didn't try to sound wise, he simply spoke honestly from his experience. That honesty made people connect with him. Listeners saw him as someone who had lived through extreme highs and lows, someone who had made mistakes but refused to stay broken. His podcast turned him into an unexpected philosopher of survival. People who once knew him only for his knockouts now listened to him for guidance, comfort, and understanding. Slowly, Mike Tyson rebuilt his identity. He was no longer just Iron Mike, the unstoppable champion. He became a husband who tried every day to be better, a father who showed up, a businessman who invested carefully, and a man who finally understood his emotions. His new life wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was built on lessons learned through pain, loss, and deep self-reflection. But the final test waiting for him wouldn't be emotional, it would be physical, cruel, and completely unavoidable. Even the strongest warrior must one day make peace with time. Mike Tyson, now 59 years old, lives in a chapter of life that looks completely different from the wild years he once survived. His body, which carried him through some of the hardest fights in boxing history, has changed. The fighter who once moved with explosive speed now wakes up with stiffness, aches, and reminders of the battles he pushed himself through. One of his biggest struggles has been sciatica, a nerve pain that shoots down his lower back and leg. Some days it becomes so painful that he can barely walk. He once appeared in public in a wheelchair, showing how unpredictable the condition can be. In 2024, he also faced a frightening health scare mid-flight. Tyson suddenly felt severe stomach pain from a gastric ulcer flare-up. Passengers noticed something was wrong as the crew assisted him. The situation was serious enough that the flight had to prepare for medical help upon landing. Tyson later said that the pain felt like his body warning him that he could no longer push himself like he once did. These moments reminded him that nobody, not even the hardest fighter in the world, is untouched by aging. Because of these experiences, Tyson has learned the value of restraint. For most of his life, he trained like a machine, fast, aggressive, intense. But now, he understands that training must be smarter, not harder. Instead of explosive workouts, he focuses on stretching, careful movements, and exercises that support joint health. He listens to doctors, pays attention to his pain levels, and takes recovery seriously. Meditation has also become a big part of his routine. It helps him stay calm, manage stress, and stay connected to his emotions in a healthy way. Tyson knows that pushing too hard could put him at risk, so he trains with patience rather than ego. This shift shows how much he has matured. He no longer tries to prove anything to the world. He simply tries to stay healthy for himself and his family. Financially, Tyson lives in a much smarter and more stable way than he did in his youth. After losing more than $400 million and going bankrupt in 2003, he decided to rebuild his finances with discipline. Today, his estimated net worth sits between $25 and $30 million. This money didn't come from fast choices or reckless spending. It came from consistent work and careful decisions. His podcast, Hotboxin', became one of the biggest celebrity podcasts in the world, earning millions of views and bringing strong sponsorship deals. He also has brand partnerships in health, wellness, clothing, and cannabis products. Tyson invested in real estate too, buying properties that create long-term income. His businesses are stable because they are rooted in strategy, not impulse. Family has become the center of Tyson's life. He has a deep bond with his daughter Milan, who is growing into a serious tennis player. Tyson supports her with pride and calmness. He travels with her, watches her train, and cheers for her in tournaments, always staying quiet and respectful on the sidelines. He says that watching her chase her dreams gives him joy that no championship belt ever gave him. His son Morocco, born in 2011, brings him daily happiness with his personality and energy. Tyson enjoys the little things with him, talking, playing, cooking together. His older children, Raina and Amir, are adults now. Raina works in filmmaking, while Amir is involved in business. Tyson is proud of their independence and tries to be present for them in ways he couldn't when he was younger. Miguel also remains an important part of his life. For Tyson, being a father is one of the strongest parts of his identity. His home environment reflects the peace he now values. Tyson lives in Las Vegas in a large house that feels more like a sanctuary than a mansion. The rooms are filled with art, comfortable spaces, and warm colors. He has a meditation room where he sits quietly each morning. There is a private gym designed for low-impact training, stretching, and rehab work. Outside, the property has beautiful landscaping, a calming pool area, and places where he can relax without stress. Over the years, he also purchased additional real estate in Nevada and Arizona, small rental units, land plots, and long-term investments that create stability instead of chaos. Tyson also gives back in ways that many people don't see. His difficult past makes him deeply connected to young people struggling today. He supports youth boxing programs, food assistance projects, mental health groups, and re-entry programs that help people who leave prison rebuild their lives. Tyson often says he wants to help kids who grew up the way he did, afraid, overlooked, and angry with no guidance. His donations are often quiet, without attention or cameras, because he does it from the heart, not for publicity. He believes that if he survived everything he went through, then someone else can too, and he wants to be part of that hope. As Tyson speaks in interviews today, one idea keeps coming up. Strength is not power, it's wisdom. He believes that real strength comes from understanding yourself, controlling your emotions, and learning from your mistakes. He no longer measures success by knockouts or money. Instead, he measures it by peace of mind. He describes his younger self as emotional, reactive, and trapped by anger. Now, he sees himself as a man who worked hard to become calm, patient, and reflective. This transformation is part of his legacy. In many ways, Tyson's life has come full circle. He rose from extreme poverty, reached the top of the world, lost almost everything, and then rebuilt himself with clarity and purpose. His story shows that a person can fall apart and still rise again in a stronger, wiser form. It shows that no matter how dark life becomes, change is possible. Tyson's legacy is not just about being a champion, it is about surviving, learning, and becoming better. And as he stands on the edge of his 60 seconds, one question remains the only one life still hasn't answered.